and welcome back to my channel. This is a Small Line Books. My name is Kayomi and today I have my March reading wrap up. So, just to kind of start off with some stats, this month I read 6 books, which is a little less than I usually do. Things just got kind of hectic. But I had pretty much a good reading month because I enjoyed all of them. I read 5 fiction and 1 non-fiction, 1 memoir. Out of those books, 3 were from my library, 1 was an audiobook from the library, and the other was a Kindle book, and the other was a physical book that I got from my library. The other 3 books were all used books, so I got 2 books used at a used bookstore and 1 book I got for free. So I feel really proud of that because I'm really trying to get more used books, things like that. Okay, let's just get right into it. So let me start off by giving you guys the first book that I read this month, which was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I have an entire little review on this book, so you can go listen to my thoughts there. But I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I really love Sally Rooney's writing and this story really captivated me. So Conversations with Friends follows these 2 women who are in college and university in Ireland, and they are basically and Sally Rooney is exploring their friendship. They used to date, and the main character is having an affair with an older man who is married, and we kind of see how that impacts the friendship between the 2 main characters, how it impacts in one of the characters' lives. Deeply profound, but if you want to hear more about that, my review was I'm Telling the Truth, But I'm Lying, a book of memoir essays by Bassey, Ikpi. And this is a book that follows Ikpi's life through her diagnosis with bipolar disorder. And I quite enjoy her writing style. I love the form of this memoir. And she starts off by talking about her childhood, talking about her parents, talking about the people she's dated and how she's dated, and her relationships with people around her. And then she kind of goes on to her experience in a psychiatric ward. Deeply profound narrative. I was saddened a lot by it because just to see how much her illness has tormented her and has impacted her relationships and her friendships. And as someone myself who's living with bipolar disorder, I really resonated with a lot of the words she said, and I literally highlighted so many things in that book. I do not rate memoirs in stars because I just find it weird to rate people's like personal stories, but I really did thoroughly enjoy Bassey Ikpi's writing and the story, and I just felt a deeper connection with the material because of my own personal history with the illness. Okay. The next book that I read was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by none other than Ottessa, Moshfegh. Okay, this book, when I tell you, I tried to listen to this book on audiobook 2 years ago and it didn't work out for me. And then I read this book and I was like, wow. I even have 2 tabs in it, as you can see here. And this is following a young woman who is a Columbia graduate. She's wealthy, living on the Upper East Side in the early 2000s, right before 9/11. She decides that she's going to take a lot of pills, a concoction of psychiatric medication, and just have a year of rest, a year of sleeping, no hanging out with anyone, no seeing anyone, nothing. And she is the worst person in the world, and she has this best friend who she's really mean to, and her parents are dead, and it's just a really deeply uncomfortable book, but I really loved it. I gave this one 4 stars. I probably give everything 4 stars because I just like, that's like my default rating if I like a book or I love a book. just like really funny, like in a bad, in like a kind of in a bad way. And it's deeply sad as well. Like she is not well. She is not okay. And she has this like psychiatrist who's kind of kooky and like the worst psychiatrist I've ever heard of. But I also wonder how much of that is kind of like a play on the psychiatry field. Ottessa Moshfegh is such a good writer. I think she is one of my favorite writers now. I've read Death in Her Hands, I've read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I hope to read Eileen and Homesick for Another World because I really love her writing and I want to write like her. Like her and Sally Rooney, very different writing styles, but they're two of my favorite authors right now. So yeah, I think this book is like one of those books that people either really liked or really hated it, and I was the people who really liked it, but not because I saw myself reflected in the character, because if you see yourself reflected in this character, I don't know what to tell you, but I don't think you're supposed to see yourself reflected in this character. I don't think it's supposed to be relatable. But really well done in my opinion, really well done writing. Alright, the next book that I read was These Ghosts Are Family by Maisy. This is a intergenerational Jamaican American novel that follows a secret of Abel Paisley, who leaves Jamaica to move to England and then pretends to be dead, leaving his family behind in Jamaica. He eventually moves to America to start a new life. He gets married, he has kids, or a daughter, and now he's dying. And so he's bringing his daughters all together and his granddaughter all together to tell them this big secret. And we follow each of their lives and every kind of descendant of this family's lives to see how this secret has, like, where it came from and then where it like impacted. However, my thoughts on this book, where I gave it 4 stars, I thought it was a really ambitious novel. I have a whole reading vlog about this, so I'm not gonna like go too much in depth. But my only thing about this book that I didn't like, even though I gave it 4 stars, was that I thought it was going to be about Abel Paisley and it was about all the women in his life, which is fine. However, the first 4 chapters of this book were so strong. I was like, this is going to be a 5-star read. And then it kind of lost me in the middle and the end was just really like, what? However, overall, I really enjoyed this book and I actually would recommend this to a large swath of people. So, okay, the next book I read was actually an audiobook. It was The Friend by Sigrid Nunez, and it really follows this narrator who just lost her friend to death by suicide, and she has to adopt his dog, and she can't keep the dog at her house because it's not allowed. But that's not really what the story is about. That's what the narrator kind of wants you to think the story is about. But the story is about way more than that, and it's about grief, it's about the literary world and writing, and it's just basically this narrator following her grief with all these different musings on life, literature, love, death, grieving, and by the end she's coming to terms with her grief. That's the best way I can explain it. It's one of those like plotless narratives that a lot of people tend to not really like. It did win a National Book Award, I believe, in 2018. So I personally really enjoyed it because it felt like, let me just say that I'm somebody who enjoys plotless things, in that I like musings on the world and musings on what it means to exist, that kind of like woo things. So I quite like The Friend. For some people I wouldn't recommend it because maybe it's not like a directed plot. So if you're like into really plot heavy narratives, I wouldn't recommend The Friend to you. Also, just a fair warning, it does talk about suicide and death and grief and death of a loved one. So if those types of topics are difficult for you to read, then I would stay away from that book. And lastly, I also read The Housekeeper and the Professor as a buddy read with my friend Hazel, and I was simultaneously reading it physically and listening to it, and I can't find my physical copy right now, which is so strange because I just had it. Anyway, and I really enjoyed Yoko Agawa's writing style in The Housekeeper and the Professor. I read her previous work, The Memory Police, which actually was published after The Housekeeper and the Professor. This housekeeper who's assigned to work at the house of this math professor, and this math professor can only remember things for 80 minutes at a time. He finds out that she has a son, so she starts bringing her son to his house. And the professor and the son form a really fond relationship of each other, and they start doing math problems together and math homework, and there's a lot of baseball games in this. And I want to say that this book kind of blew over my head a little bit. Like, I felt like I wasn't in the story, so I might reread it because I felt like the words were so powerful, the writing was so beautiful and dreamlike, but I just was like, what's going on? Another one of those like plotless books, because by the end, like, a lot has happened but nothing really happens. Like, you're not seeing a trajectory to going anywhere. So I liked that, but I still don't really get it. I need to reread it to be able to get it. Those are all my books for March. Look forward to a reading vlog coming soon from this week. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, like, please let me know in the comments what you read in March that stuck out to you. And I will see you next time at A Small Line Books. Bye.